right, ladies and gentlemen, we're very excited to bring you another episode of FranchisOR Bust in our third season. And as always, our goal is to bring you folks inside of the franchising space that have an intriguing story and run an amazing group of brands or individual brands. Today we have one that's in charge of a group that we're going to be really excited to talk to and learn from. So we've got Ryan Parsons, who's joining us today. He is the CEO of Evive Brands. And Ryan, it's great to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks so much for having me on today.
For sure. Love it. So, Ryan, let's kind of just start with the basics so we can bring everybody up to speed, and then we'll get into some more details, about Evive and, kind of what your passions are and what's so great about what you guys do and the culture you've built and all that good stuff. But kind of maybe start us out a little from the beginning, just what got you involved in your brands and what your vision was and all that good stuff and how you feel like you're, kind of accomplishing some of those initial goals that you set out for.
All right. So I'll give you a little bit on me. I've been in franchising for a long time. Before I was the CEO of Evive Brands, my brother and I are the founders of the Brothers That Just Do Gutters. So that is a large national franchise, about 130 franchisees across the United States and soon to be in Canada. So I know what it's like to start a business from scratch. When my brother started this in 1999, it wasn't a franchise. It was him on a gutter truck. I hopped on that gutter truck with him when I lost my job at a .com that became a .bomb, and I'm helping him on weekends, and then before you know it, full time. And then we started to grow a local company, had the vision to franchise this concept and work towards that for many years. I mean, that idea of franchising came in 2007, and we didn't actually franchise till 2015 because we really wanted the foundation to be right, the technology, the support. So, I know what it's like to try and build something from scratch. I know what it's like to support your first 20 franchisees as you launch them and you think these things are, oh, this system's good. And, oh, crap, it's not as good as I thought. And then you got to go fix it and make it better for each franchisee. And then in 2023, we partnered up with Riverside and, we sold the Brothers That Just Do Gutters and then became part of this platform called Evive Brands. And I was fortunate enough to be able to accept the position as CEO of the platform. And there was already 3 other brands in it: Assisted Living Locators, Executive Home Care, and Grayson's Estate Sales and Business Liquidation. So that is kind of the fast running start to who I am and what I'm doing now.
That's awesome. One thing that can really be underestimated, I think, in the world of franchising is having a leader that does understand what it takes to start and grow a company. There's a misconception sometimes in the world of franchising that they're going to buy into a system and that almost kind of just locks in that they're going to succeed. I mean, well, everyone else has succeed and I bought in. So what about me? Right. And I think, having someone with your experience is really helpful. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how that experience has kind of influenced the way that you help franchisees and kind of maybe level set with them when they first get going inside of Evive Brands?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just being able to see it from our first franchisee to the 100th, right? You can see what works. And really, you can have the most perfect system, well thought out, foolproof. But at the end of the day, it's the franchisee's ability to execute that plan, right? And it's really odd when you see, let's say you have 2 franchisees in Atlanta. Why is one doing so much better than the other, right? And you see it. And there's typically not as many nuances. It's very rare that it's like, well, the marketing is so much different, 20 minutes from here. We've seen, I don't want to discount it, we have seen a couple little pockets in the country that are absolutely odd. But other than that, it's really not that. It really comes down to their leadership, their ability to cast vision and attract people that want to go and build and grow something awesome. And really, it's their ability to implement the system, raise their hand for help, utilize their business coaches and everything else. So definitely, you got to have a good system to start with, but the franchisees really they got to spend their first 6 months to a year just being brilliant at the basics. That's a Catherine Munson saying that franchising is all about being brilliant at the basics. And when you can do that, then you can start to add your flavor over time, not change the system, but, kind of make things a little bit more yours, make it your personality.
Shout out to Catherine. Love that we got that reference in. Yeah, no, for sure, man. And that's like I said, that there can be some of that, like, well, I have a system, I know what I'm doing, but you hit on a really good point there too, and it's really important for prospective franchisees that may be considering going into the franchise space, that it's still that like 6 months to a year, maybe even 18 months or so of like, hey, I got to get off the ground, and that really heavy involvement, really buying in, really being passionate.
Correct.
Talk a little bit about as you guys are attracting franchisees to Evive Brands, finding the right fit for a potential franchisee. I've heard it said from many folks that I've talked to, and just from understanding the space pretty well, you have some franchisees that are kind of buying in. It's mostly economical for them, and it's kind of an economic thing. But the ones that really buy in and I feel kind of take off and become multi-unit owners and those kind of things, they tend to have some kind of a passion for the actual business they're getting into. Home care, different things like that can be really important. So how do you kind of line up a franchisee, if you will, into helping them make the best decision of what brand to be a part of?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because in the service brands, like home service, like gutters, it's not the passion for gutters that drives them, right? Or the passion for construction. But in the senior brands, in assisted living locators, executive home care, Graysons, it is like 90 to 95% of the time, it is passion. It is somebody who's got a horrible story of everything was great and they put their mom in a nursing home, and 2 weeks later, she's no longer with them. And it's like, no way. And they want to go and make a difference. So I've seen the passion play so much more on that side of the business, and which is amazing, because they are truly, I guess we can all justify any kind of business we're doing is really helping people. It really is. But in these particular businesses, I mean, think of estate sales. I mean, that's typically, you've lost a loved one and now you're trying to figure out what to do with their home and all the belongings. I mean, this is very, very personal. So I would 100% say, when it comes to some of those types of brands, passion is gigantic. When it comes to home services, I think it starts to make more sense financially. That's the first trigger. Oh wow, these guys are making that. I kind of like gutters all of a sudden, and then it gets into the belief that this business is the vehicle to their dream. So most of the people that buy a franchise, it's not necessarily that, oh, I love yogurt and I want to pour it all day long. It is, oh my gosh, I can quit my job, I can build a legacy, I can impact the community, I can grow something for my family, I can make a difference. And this concept is going to help me fulfill my personal dreams. Does that make sense?
For sure. And that's what I was kind of touching on. Like, for some it's economical, for some it's passion based, and you got to like kind of figure out which direction to put them in. Eh, You know, you come from the background of like single brand franchise, so with your gutter business, and now you're engaged at a multi-brand level with private equity, and all that comes along with that world. Talk a little bit about some of the advantages that you can have in being a part of a group of brands as opposed to just a single brand. I mean, maybe there's some just general differences, but what do you find those differences to be, and what are some of the positives for being a part of a group?
So positives are just like shared best practices across all brands. For like, take something simple like onboarding, right? I just sold a franchise and now we got to get them up to speed. We're able to unify and systematize, we onboard across every single brand, right? So it's the same type of experience. We're not missing any gaps. One's not just using a checklist. We're all utilizing Monday.com. We're all utilizing the market. We have a shared marketing team. So for some of the smaller brands, my goodness, the access that they have at a small, like when you think of like a 10 or $15 million system and everyone's putting in 1%, it's not a heck of a lot to do on a national level. But now when you've got a platform and shared services, I mean, you have access to things and vendors at prices you would never get until you were a much bigger system. So IT, tech stack, marketing, support, having the deep pockets of Evive or Riverside so that when, it's all about ROI. If it's like, oh my gosh, if we can increase, if we can improve our CRM, I believe we could have a 10 or 20% increase. It's like, all right, well, the money's there. As long as we can justify it, roll it out. I mean, you've got so much more ability to move faster, especially in some of these smaller brands. So just a few off the top of my head.
I've always found that getting into an emerging brand for a franchisee and just being, so you lived this, just being the franchisor in an emerging brand, lots of challenges. It's kind of its own animal, if you will, for what that is. But I always seem to find that if you want to buy into an emerging brand and get some of the benefits of that, in other words, you're on the ground floor, you can help influence, you can help, really have a part in the growth and development. I think there's a lot of advantage in getting into a family of brands in that emerging brand, as opposed to just individually, in a standalone emerging brand. You get a lot
Heck
more
yeah.
help, to your point.
Yeah, you just brought up something. It made me think of something for the first time ever. I think your best time, unfortunately, we're recording this and people are going to hear this, but I think the best time to get into a franchise brand is when they're emerging or when they're mature. It's that middle part that's a little bit weird. They've learned a lot in the beginning, and a lot of new of the first franchisees get better deals and bigger territories because they're trying to sell things, right? And they do have a word. But then you get to this weird point where you're not quite making so much money as a franchisor that you can do all these cool things. You're not quite big enough, and you can't quite turn as fast. And then you get past that point, and then you're able to really supercharge, and you get the better vendor. So, um, I would say, to your point, I think being in an emerging brand inside of a platform, you kind of get to skip that middle period where you're like, my gosh, how come we don't have a Super Bowl ad yet? Not that anyone's getting one this year, but like you think this is a national brand. Why aren't we like all over TV and everything? And that is, and that's a direct result of brand fun. It's not necessarily the platform. You got to spend in perspective to what comes in. But yeah, I think there is a huge advantage. And when we were looking to partner, with the brothers at Just Do Gutters, I was not even considering anybody, any private equity that did not have a platform. Was not interested. I only wanted to be in a platform. For two reasons. Cross branding. How awesome. When we were getting ready to, partner with the gutter company, I mean, I'm thinking, how cool if they have a roofing, window, side, like all these other franchises. It didn't work out that way, but we're going to be acquiring brands and building that out because now the cross brand, how cool to keep it in the family. And then the other side, how awesome, or I'll backtrack. One of the things that I was always nervous about, not nervous, but I hated when a franchisee could only buy one territory. And not because I wanted them to spend more money, it's because they get landlocked, right? And so you buy this one territory, they grow it up in 3-5 years, whatever, they hit this kind of maturity, and they're like, my gosh, oh, too bad you sold all the ones near me. I I got it as far as I can. If that was the scenario, how cool that they could buy another, be a multi-brand owner, and now they buy a complementary franchise that they can run out of that territory, utilize their already existing staff, structure, location, and now they can grow yet again. So that is really what I wanted for us, our franchisees, and our employees.
And you've seen that in some of the most successful brands in the space, like Neighborly, and some of
Oh
these
yeah.
other groups where you've got that cross pollination, where they say, like, yes, I'm a Molly Maid owner, but I'm also an owner in Five Star Painting and an Air Serve, but it's all underneath that same umbrella, and it really does give them that scalability and room for growth.
Yeah, and it's not, I mean, I've known people to buy other franchises, and it's a pain when they're not in the same platform. That's a different CRM. That's a different web developer. It's a different marketing team. It's different strategy. And you get that, like, how come you don't do it like this? They do it like this over here. So I would highly recommend, like, if you're ever thinking about being a multi-brand owner, I mean, it's really nice if it's in the same platform because there's going to be so many similarities and best practices within that brand.
For sure. Talk a little bit then, you've got kind of understood the idea and concept of starting something from scratch, then now getting into a family of brands, what the advantages of that are and how that can really benefit franchisees. How do you maintain solid, so you had a hand in building a culture for a brand, really yourself. I mean, driving it, you and your brother, you built the culture, the franchisees buy into it, everybody buys into it, all good. Now you've got another challenge here of like, okay, you've got to wrangle culture across a multitude of brands and make
Correct.
sure they all funnel up and kind of buy into the same thing. How important is that kind of cultural tone? And then how important also is the reinforcement of it, like at conferences and those type of things that you guys engage in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer. I forget who says it, but culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So maybe it's Peter Drucker or somebody like that.
Are you
So,
sure it wasn't me? That sounds like
you
something I
know
would
what?
say.
It is a Trevor quote. I apologize. I get my stuff mixed up.
I never get credit. I never get credit for it.
There you go. So culture eats strategy for I'm huge on that. And it was interesting because my brother and I built a brand that, we had a location and everyone came to work. And so like we were all in person and we win awards for culture. And now you get into this new role in this new environment and it's mostly remote. My entire staff now, my CFO, CGO, we're all in different states. And so my biggest thing is leadership, right? I have to hire unbelievable brand leaders because they're driving culture. And I believe what really, really is at the forefront of culture is transparency, right? When you are purposefully making yourself available, when you're going over numbers, when you're going over things that you tried and didn't work, admitting your failures. I think as a franchisor, we want to, we only want to ever be able to blame the franchisee. It's hard for a franchisor. We had to raise our hand. We sold a bunch of franchises at one point at Brothers. And when the spring hit, the phones went nuts and our call center was underwater. And we were missing calls, not getting back to people. And I had to literally make a video and say, I am so sorry. We are unable to keep up. If anybody could temporarily answer their own phones until we get this sorted. I mean, it was like I get the feeling in my chest right now of like it was the first time as a franchisor. I'm like, my gosh, this is 100% on us. And it was amazing. 30 franchisees reach out immediately, like, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're, admitted it. And I had one or two that are like, what the heck? You said in the FDD. And it's like, I'm sorry. Anyway, I digress. But I believe all of our brands now have a monthly town hall where open forum, they go over stuff. Actually, one does it weekly, just because they don't, and it was funny. They just did an NPS survey and not one person said anything about communication this time, which is unheard of in an NPS. And so monthly town halls, going over what you're working on, what, brand fund transparency. This is the biggest contention for franchisees. Like, what are you doing with this money? And I'm still working to try and get it even more transparent. How do we show them, and then at least quarterly, updates. So how do we over communicate? How do we not just send out emails? How do we like literally do what you and I are doing with franchisees? And I think that is really what helps with the culture, because if you ever read The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, you can't build anything unless you have a foundation of trust. And trust is built on communication and transparency.
They buy into a franchise system because for, well, variety of reasons. We touched on a few earlier, but one of the reasons is because they're not necessarily interested in trying to just start it all themselves, right? Like, I'm just going to do this all myself and start it all from scratch and do everything my way. And so that communication is like, okay, I'm putting up my capital, in somewhat of a way to say, yes, I'm banking on myself. Yes,
Yeah,
I am going to do this, but I am also kind of trusting you, right, to help
correct.
steward me along and
Correct.
help me succeed. And so, yeah, it's really great to hear that you guys
You're
pay so
paying
much
for a
attention to that.
shortcut. You're literally paying for a shortcut. What
Right.
took me 10 to 15 years to develop, it was amazing. I think we were 10 years in business before we exceeded $1 million. The franchisees are doing that in their first and second year,
Mhm.
you know? So you are literally, when you're thinking, oh man, I got to pay 150 grand or whatever it is to get all started up, and they get what, 6%? It's like, my gosh, 6% of $1 million, 60 grand. If I can't be a good partner for 60 grand, like that's what, imagine you had to take on a partner. Like that's what I always think about with franchising. What's your all in? 10%? Well, call center fee, marketing, this. All right. On $1 million company, if $100,000 is going to the franchisor, my gosh, if I could find a partner that would answer my phones, do my marketing, help me hire, give me all the best practices, of course I'd give them 100 grand a year based on $1 million, right? And that's how I think of it. How do we become that 6% check? I always want to picture it written with a thank you in the memo, right? That it's never like this resentful, like, what did you do? Like, I'm doing everything. It should be a thank you. A good franchisor should never have to justify the 6% or
That,
whatever it is.
yeah, and you're so nail on the head with that one, man. Because I've, you know, uh, outside of being the top podcast located in Brentwood, Tennessee for franchising, I also I also have been running an advertising agency for 20 years, and we work in specifically with franchisees. And what that can be in some brands, one of the big gripes, my royalties, this or that and whatever. And it's got to be really refreshing for franchisees or for anyone considering maybe Evive, to understand your philosophy there, to really say like,
Yeah.
hey, this,
And that's the philosophy. I can't say that everyone feels that way. There are
sure.
people that will say in our systems, hey, the fees are too high. And if I hear that, it means then the value is not big enough right now. And how do we make sure that we continue to do that? So I don't want to say that every single franchisee across
Sure.
every brand, I mean, there's like almost 400 franchisees, but that is our heart. That is our goal, that every single person should feel that way.
Absolutely. So, talk a little bit about the future. So you guys are, you got 4 brands with you right now. You've got a Riverside has other, a lot of experience in the franchise space. So I know they're eager to grow and build. So what are you looking like here in the next 5 years?
It's 5 years. Oh man, I think in the next 6 months to a year, we're going to double in size.
Oh,
As
wow.
far as, yeah, there's a lot of awesome brands with some of their hands are raised. We're meeting with actively. So I think this platform will be double in size in the next 6 months to a year. So that's exciting because that's more opportunity for the franchisees. That's more opportunity for cross branding, vendor relations, and everything like that. So yeah, that's the goal, is to just, continue to drive the technology, AI, get rid of the fluff and all the Frankensteins that we've all built, in our tech stacks and in our businesses. You just adding on. So we're really making a real big effort to kind of smooth out these tech stacks, remove friction for our franchisees, remove frictions for clients to do business with us, doubling down on how we're approaching the internet and SEO. We've made ridiculous strides in SEO. We've got one of our brands that's spending 22% less in PPC with just as many leads. So we're driving certain things down. So I'm excited for the future because, there's a lot of work to be done. I think we've done a lot of great work already, but my vision for what this platform can and will be, we're getting there, but we ain't there.
But you're on your way, and
We're on our way.
you're
I'll
on
tell you
your
that.
way. And man, it's been a real pleasure to get to know you and get to know, what you've built and your philosophy. And frankly, I think it'd be a breath of fresh air for any potential franchisee just to hear what your mission is and what your goals are. And it sounds like now's the time, Ryan
If
is
not
about to
now,
take
when?
off.
That's what my wife always says. If
Yeah.
not now, when?
My wife always says, "You didn't take the trash out again?" That's what she says. But no,
Yeah, mine's more about the dishes go in the dishwasher, not the
Mm,
sink.
right. That too. That too. Well, cool, Ryan. Well, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Is there any parting shot you want to leave us with?
Oh no. I mean, I just appreciate the opportunity, but I mean, if you're thinking about buying a franchise, if you're thinking about getting into it, it is one of the best ways that you can fast track whatever dream that you picture your life in a future state, franchising is a really good opportunity to get you there.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, again, we really appreciate you so much. If you want to learn more about Evive, then I'm sure we can go check out the website, right? Go to evive.com. Is that correct?
EviveBrands.com.
EviveBrands.com. See, there we go. EviveBrands.com. Go and check it out. Learn more about what Ryan's building and going to be building for the future. And with that, we'll say again, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And looking forward to the next time that we get all together here on FranchisOR Bust. All right, Ryan.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity.